This is Between Hook Sets. I'm Jason Walter from In Through the Outdoors with my partner in slime, Kurt Underhill from the Fishing Crew.
I think that first bite was you were watching the live scope screen too early. You fished the screen, not the bite.
Yep, you're right. Because look, there's one there, there's one there, there's one there. You know, it's like, I'm sorry, but I can't help it. There's not only that, I was ice fishing for a quick second, which was kind of stupid because I was out in the yard, you know, practicing. I'm going for the big fatties. This is the smallest I'm going this spring. We went from iced over to open water on a couple of my favorite early spring lakes. So, you know, not that I'm going to be successful, but I'm certainly going to try, and I'm going to give it my darndest. But boy, I feel more comfortable if that just stays there. But it's getting to the point where I just don't like to fish without it. I want it there. It's a safety blanket.
Yeah,
it's not helping me catch any more fish, but it's a safety blanket. It feels pretty good. I like it.
The old lake, speaking of ice lakes, the old Lake Oahe southern end is wide open, buddy.
Oh, I bet it is.
They put boat ramps in at Core Bay and West Shore this last week. So pretty awesome to, I don't know if it's awesome or not, but the lake's open and hopefully their fisheries management plan with the amount of gizzard shad they put in weathered through the winter.
Oh, let's hope so. It's go time.
It's go time.
We're still going to have winter. Winter's not done. I think, some people are saying, spring is here. I'm not going with that. I'm not going with it. We're going to have a storm or two or snow or whatever.
About April 5th when we're in Chamberlain running a tournament, I figure we're going to have a blizzard.
Yeah, well, here's the deal. This April 5th at Cedar Shore, I'm going to be prepared. I'm not going to dress half-assed like I'm going to a high school dance. I'm going to be dressed like I'm going to fish in the cold.
There you go.
And not freeze my keister off. So, good show tonight. I'm pumped about the show tonight.
Me too.
And I'm super excited. I got to remember to pop that out real quick because we end up covering up the guest with the graphic. But hi, Drake.
It's better looking that way if you cover up the face. It works better. How are you guys today?
I could, I wouldn't mind if I just had my face covered up the whole time. But anyway, how are things in Isle, Minnesota?
All great. We are just dealing with. I just don't know if I should put like my snowblower away or leave it out, and that's kind of what I'm debating right now. Like I put my ice fishing stuff away, but I'm like, is it gonna be too early? It's just crazy. We'll see what happens.
Yeah, but I mean, this time of year, it's got to be good because you are heavy into boat rigging.
Yeah.
Right now, and so maybe not having the temptation to go ice fish is good, but maybe having the temptation to put the boat on the water is bad.
Yeah, that's exactly it. It's funny because Robert's like, man, you're really getting these orders out fast. And I'm like, well, I can't do anything else right now. I can't go fishing. So I'm just staying here working all the time. So
yeah, well, good. And that's the deal. You at this point, you might as well work. Honestly, I went outside today and I set a bucket up 45 feet away.
Yeah.
And here's the thing. I have transitioned from a spinning reel to almost 100% bait caster. And I am pumped and excited. I had no idea that now this thing's big. This is Dewey big. Is this Drake big too?
Yeah. I'll troll that size. Casting, I like a little bit smaller, but I'll troll that size.
Yeah. Okay. So, right there. Here, this is going to be the smallest one I'm going to chuck this spring.
Yeah, that's a good one to start with.
It's interesting because I talked to Dewey about it a little bit, and he's like, if you can't hit a bucket,
Yeah.
So I went out and I started casting. I probably got in about 200. I do 4 casts a minute. I actually time it. Not kidding you. So I got about 300 casts in. By the time I got to about 175, 180, I started hitting the bucket.
Yes.
I started and dropping it in the bucket. So to actually put it in the bucket was and that was a little more finessey, but by God, I've got my new late winter project.
Yep.
I think I had a lot of fun. Boy, it's almost like practicing roping for calves.
Yep.
It's just a ton of fun. We did that in '97. Sorry, I don't mean to change the subject.
No,
But
you're
we
good.
went to Nebraska, bought some Corriente steers, and we roped the entire summer of 1997. And golly darn, did we have fun!
Yep.
Oh, God.
Damn right.
So, I don't know where to start here. Oh, wait a minute. Hold the phone. Never mind. That's a picture of me from the other day ago. I have no idea how that one got in there, but it got in there. So, you say you're busy doing the graphics and all that fun stuff. And I know that we're kind of at the end of ice season, but we got to talk fin gear a little bit before we get into other stuff, because I think we're going to get super busy, and I don't want to forget talking about this stuff.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I started this company probably, 4 years ago now, and I started with Robert Cardenius, and we never thought it would have grown into what it is now. It's kind of crazy. We were thinking we needed rod holders and graft mounts, and now we have such an array of stuff, from tracks to rod holders, graft mounts, shuttles, trees, tube rod holders now. I mean, it's just crazy what we've expanded into. And it's just my way of trying to stay in this whole industry. We all want to try to survive in this fishing thing. And for me to fish professionally and then still live it, day to day is awesome. So, it's been a ride, and we just started, Rasset Outdoor Group is now repping all of our stuff. So they're selling kind of all over the country now. So it's been a blast and a huge learning curve.
So how did you get it? I mean, you said to keep you in the industry, but how did this start? Like, was it out of necessity? Was it out of pure frustration? Like, what was it?
A little bit. I mean, Robert was with one company as I was with another company, and we just couldn't get our products. And we kind of just looked and said, hey, we want to change a few things. We think we can make a few things better. And we just started with there. Literally was a rod holder that we carved basically out of wood, and then I got some aluminum samples, and we literally just went to town. It was just one of those things. And one of the things about our rod holders that are pretty unique is we have the number dials on there. So a lot of people will ask, what exactly are those? Well, they're number rings. So if you have multiple rods out, 6 rods out, let's say, you can put that dial to 120 feet so that once you start reeling in that fish, what you had that rod out at. Because I know I'll get about halfway in and I'm like, oh crap, what depth did I have that one at? And I don't even remember, So
glad you got the attention span I do.
yeah, exactly. So and yeah, now with this forward facing sonar thing, it's we have the live scan pole is become our #1 bestseller by far. Which is crazy because 5 years ago it was just barely getting started on the forward facing sonar thing to where we are today, of people arguing all day every day about it.
But with that, I mean, you're in a competitive industry. You got how many other people? So what sets you apart other than your dial on there?
No, and that's where I think we put the time in, and we want to make sure that any angler, from whether they're fishing the National Walleye Tour to your weekend angler, it's built sturdy enough for them to fish. There's a few things that we work on as far as durability, and I think that's one thing that kind of sets us apart. We're trying to be innovative so it's easy for the fishermen, yet very durable so that they can use the stuff day in and day out.
That's got to be durable.
Yeah.
There are too many chintzy light things out there that just aren't rigged and ready for everyday use, because this stuff gets used hard.
Yep. Yeah. And I always revert back to Kent Anderson told me back in the day. He's like, drive your truck over a chiseled, cornfield at 30 to 50 miles an hour. And that's what you're doing to your boat all day, every day. So, it's just one of those things. There's my son is trying
to. I was going to say, we got behind you.
Yeah.
Hey,
they just got home from church, so he's probably just saying hi. So,
yeah, I had a kid do that to me one time too, except for he gave me rabbit ears.
Yeah, that would be the one that's the middle one. He's the troublemaker. This one's the next one. So,
You know, as long as we're on the topic of animals, I got to bring this
Oh,
up because I
got a
don't want to
Shark
forget.
Tank.
Uh-oh.
We got a Shark
Artie.
Tank thing right here. Mr. Wonderful.
Yeah, Artie, of course. I would give you. I don't know if I could go for that one. That one would be stretching it, but we could maybe figure something out. You know, I'm hoping Artie's lakes open up over there in Big Stone pretty quick so that I can go over to the border waters here pretty fast. So
I know that honestly,
well,
was going to check that out this
weekend.
weekend.
He's wide open, buddy. Come out and stay.
Yeah, I know. Yep.
So let's go here real quick because I don't want to miss out on this either. At least, Artie, at least we know you've got the money. When we need some, we got to come Shark Tanking to you. I had no idea. I knew you were famous because you're the 2021 National Walleye Tour Angler of the Year. Yep. And that's all well and good. And that, of course, brought you fame. But I didn't know you were doing TV commercials now. The new progressive cat burglar commercial. I'm like, that's Drake Hurd.
Yep. See, I got to fill in my beard a little bit more, but. Yeah.
Well, you know, you got to trim your beard from time to time too. So
yeah.
But the second I saw that thing, I hit pause. I'm like, what?
Yeah.
Because for a second, I'm like, I think that's great.
Yep.
And if it isn't, I'm going to pretend it is. So
yeah, Justin Sieverding, always from Pierce, South Dakota, he always brings up Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer. That I'm like Cornelius, you know, the guy.
Yeah,
you know?
right.
So he always brings that up to people all the time.
Hey, Drake, off camera, me and you can have hours of fun talking about Dinger.
Dinger, yes. Okay, great. I'm glad we can do that. I'm actually going to see him tomorrow. I got to wrap his boat tomorrow, so he's on his way and he's coming. But yeah,
I got a special request for putting it on that boat, and where you can't tell him, so that'll be off too.
All right, perfect.
But no, so you get into, you know, you do the fin gear stuff, you're doing all that, you're wrapping boats, you're into deck it. I mean, you just kind of built your life around the industry. And that's what people probably don't understand is you see you out there fishing and traveling around. It costs money. You have to make money and have a job you can take off and go.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's 100% correct. You know, honestly, my very first business in this, and still one of my biggest businesses, we manufacture fishing lures for companies all over the world. Like, it's crazy to see the amount of, we do a lot of musky baits, European, we have big accounts in Sweden, Norway, Eastern Europe, where we ship fishing lures, whether it's a jig to a twister tail grub to crankbaits. And it's all made, you know, in our shop, you know, so that's what's kind of just got me in this thing, and I've always just wanted to stay in there, and we're trying to grab other avenues as we kind of go and expand, just for the case if one happened to get slow or whatever, we have the other one. So but that being said, now they're all kind of growing, and it's a good, and there's headaches at time, but it's absolutely the blast, you know, doing it all.
Are you a machinist by trade?
No, and that's
really.
Yeah, and that's where I don't know exactly how I got into the whole thing. I just knew I didn't want to work for anybody else. So I went and got a business degree from Hamlin University. And honestly, I started tying like bucktails and hair jigs for one company. And then we started doing lead. So I got a lead machine. And then we started doing soft plastics. We got some soft plastic injection machines. And then, you know, we went from there. It's just one of those crazy things.
That's, I mean, I personally never knew that, and that is awesome to see, you know, somebody thriving in the industry and building up what you built up with all your different companies, and fin gear is making a splash, man. It's in Shields, it's in, I mean, you're making a splash with something.
Yeah, and you know, I don't know. I just tell people if you work this much harder than everybody else in today's world, it shows grateful. So that's where I'm trying to do that, and I'm hoping it's paying off now because I'm having a blast doing it, and it's a great time.
Well, it's the old saying, if you do what you love, you'll never work a day in your life, right? I mean, I don't know if that's true, but
yeah.
Well, I know this
50,
between
50, I'll give you that one. Yeah.
The between hook sets, you know, we're starting to make a little bit of money. I got rid of my old Mike sock, and I got this brand new big black fluffy one here. And so, yeah, I get it. You know, when things start to take off a little bit, you know,
absolutely.
Yeah, you get to step up a tad. So,
yep.
So, business leads you into fishing the National Walleye Trail, which is probably your passion, your fun. we'll get into what it's been like, but what got you into that? How did you get there, and what keeps you going?
Yeah. Honestly, I can remember the very first tournament with my dad was a northern tournament when I was 7 years old. We took second place. I'm sure he took all the money. I got like a bag of M&Ms and I was jacked. And it just went from there. AIM started then the weekend series, I don't even know, 7-8 years ago. And we won the Angler of the Year or Team of the Year with my dad in that. And the next year we were runners up to Ross and Reed Grothy, so it was cool to having father-son teams back to back. And after that, I told my dad, I want a little more and I want to keep pursuing this. And that's when I jumped up to the NWT. And people ask me, should I did co-angler? Like maybe I should have did it 1 year, but at the same time, I was like, you know what? I'm going to jump in and I'm going to see what happens, And it took me a few years. I mean, I cast a check here and there and it was always just your bumps and bruises, to get going. These guys have been in it, doing it for 15, 20, 30 years. And after a little while, I started going back to certain locations and realizing things faster and quicker during pre-fishing. And in 2021, it kind of peaked as I got lucky and won Angler of the Year. And I feel like I'm improving, constantly now where I can be a threat at every event.
Well, I think technology is kind of changing that too. It's, not picking on the good old boys because they got us here, but the days of Bob Prop Sr. dragging a split shot and a gold Aberdeen hook is not doing it, right? I mean, it's not. You got to be innovative and you've got to try new things. Like, I always go back to who would have ever thought 4 foot of water on Lake Erie and ever. I don't care what time of year. Who would ever thought that was a thing?
Yep, 100%. And that's where I'll give credit to, like Eric McCoy and Kevin McCoy, who I travel with, Stacy Forsberg. Eric was always pushing the boundaries too with things. And where it really found out was like Green Bay. I ended up in 4th. He was in 5th and Kevin was in 7th or something like that. And it was crazy. We were catching fish in 35 to 38 feet of water, 2 to 5 feet under the surface. Like you would have never have gotten there or never have pushed that boundary had we not had some of the things, out there. So it's crazy. And it's going to constantly be changing and evolving as we learn more,
Well, in forward-facing sonar, like it or dislike it or whatever you think about it, it has really changed how we look at fish. I mean, look at how many bass techniques you can use for a walleye.
Yeah.
Who would ever thought of Ned rigging for a walleye? But it works.
Yep, absolutely. I remember the first time, like Brett McComas, he grew up in where my hometown, and we hung out together and fished. And the first time he did the Ned rig thing, I'm like, there's no way. He's just making that up. And then I did it, and I'm like, oh my God, it works. It was just like they weren't biting anything else, but they're biting this thing now, And so I think it definitely helps, and it's crazy. I always think it's crazy how high, if the water's clear in a lot of our clear lakes, that how high and how far those fish will come when they hear it or see it or whatever,
It's amazing.
Yeah.
And really, when you think about the Ned rig thing, I switched to that. I've got a couple of friends, Aaron and Ryland, that started bass fishing, and they're like, "Oh, this Ned rig thing is catching walleye like crazy." So, but think about it though, walleye like to pin stuff on the bottom.
Yeah.
So why wouldn't the Ned rig kind of be a natural walleye deal? Oh, Chad, what is a Ned rig?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, basically, Chad, it's literally a stick looking thing like this. That's roughly 2 to 3 inches, 4 inches, and it literally just sits. Your jig head is down, touching bottom. Sorry, I'll get my finger, and then it's just something you can wiggle, and you don't have to move it much. It's not necessarily a fast thing, but it's when you throw into a school and they're not biting anything else, you wiggle that thing there for 15, 30 seconds, and they crush it. Like when they pick it up and want to eat it, they just pin it and crush it.
Yeah,
it's amazing. Well, and honestly, the
right,
Northland lipstick jig. This is an old lipstick jig. It was really actually kind of the first. It was a Ned rig before Ned rig was, because it sat on the bottom. And Chad, so what happens there is that jig sits like this on the bottom, and whatever you happen to use, I've actually started using some longer floating worms, so they just kind of have their own, motion to it, but it floats, and it is truly an amazing way to fish for walleye. It's awesome.
I always think of like the Northland like stand-up jig too. Like I used to throw that all the time when I was a kid. It's just to get it up a little bit, to where they could see it better, I thought.
Well, see, and so the whole point to the success of the Ned rig is the floating plastics.
Yeah,
we never had the floating plastics before,
right?
And
100%.
so everything just it would get down on the bottom and drop on the bottom, and then you did the jigging thing. And I missed that one. Was it a question or was it a hello?
Just a thumbs up.
Yeah.
Oh, awesome. Okay. So yeah, so it's a floating deal, and it's truly amazing. So Chad, if you've never tried it, you go and here's don't get the big heavy lead, the big heavy lead heads. Get the lighter ones.
Yep.
Because they're you're gonna get a little weight from your plastic, but they're gonna pin it on the bottom, and give them a second too. Don't just go ripping and setting the hook, because it's not gonna happen instantly unless for some odd reason they are hungry or mad and they engulf it. But give them a bit before you pull it out of the net.
I always look, 1/8 to 3/16 there, Chad. That'll be your best option for weight to start with. Then as you move deeper, obviously you can step up, but that's kind of the two sizes that I look at.
And there's so many Ned rig plastics to choose from anymore. Z-Man is great, but then you really got to give it to Northland Tackle for coming out with the eye candy, because that plastic, that there's something there that will that'll catch a bunch of fish, ton of fish, before you end up having to change anything. It's so giving and forgiving. There is a bit of a learning curve to get it up on the hook and to get it over the hook keeper. There's a bit of a learning curve there. But if you go watch Tom Wynn, he's got some great help there. And Drake, I don't know if you've had a video or two helping people out with that.
I honestly, I go watch Tom. Like I'm not
right.
I go watch Tom too.
That's the way to do it, because he's so doggone good at it. And it's fun to watch. So truly amazing. So some of those bass tactics are, even years ago, I was using this big stuff, but I couldn't make it work. But I was doing it wrong. I just wasn't. Well, I wasn't trolling it for one. But if you pay attention to people who are doing things successfully, like yourself, like John Hoyer, Tom Wynn, and the list goes on and on and on. Boy, I tell you what, it takes you beyond the typical trolling bottom bouncer thing. What color spinner are we going to use today? That kind of thing.
Yep. Absolutely.
So, I want to go. I want to go to 100 places there, but I see Kurt's got a question.
No, so you get into the National Walleye Trail, and obviously there's been a little controversy over the last year or two surrounding the walleye world, with all the stuff out in Erie, what happened at the Walleye Trail. And the more I'm diving into the bass world, there's a ton of controversy there. So what's your thoughts on the National Walleye Trail path and going forward?
It's one of those things. So they switched ownership last year, and I think it's just a bit of a learning curve for them to navigate. I mean, we're trying to be the highest level that we can be, and it's just working through some bumps and bruises. Last year we had some different issues and stuff arise, and we don't necessarily think they handle them the best way. But we're hoping that they're changing them for the future. It's one of those things where we don't really have another tour that's out there right now versus bass. You have, 3, 4, 5 tours if you want to just keep switching to fit your needs. So we're hoping that, they're working on switching a few things, and we'll kind of see how this year goes and kind of go from there. Some of the rule changes we're still debating about whether or not we like them. 4 fish on the Mississippi River and only 3 at Green Bay. It's going to be interesting, and we'll just kind of have to roll with the punches and see what develops here this year. kind of go from there.
So going forward, what's your favorite stop coming up?
I would probably say Green Bay. Just because, I mean, just of the sheer numbers, I think it's going to be a little bit tough there this time around because of just we're going to get the shad spawn and all that stuff, and it could be tough that way. But I like Red Wing too. It's a cool area. I mean, it's got a lot of history of kicking out walleyes for 50, 60, 80 years, where there's been tournaments down there, and so that's always cool. And honestly, I really like that we're going back to North Dakota finally. It was one of those things where we all loved going back to North Dakota. We love the fishing out there. They do a great job, and we got to go to Devils last year, and now we get to go back to Sakakawea, which will be good. So, in all honesty, I mean, it is a pretty good schedule with, starting in Erie, Green Bay, Red Wing, and Sakakawea, and then we'll see if we make it to the championship. So,
well, let's plan on that, right?
Yeah, right. Yeah, no doubt.
I know,
Yeah.
knock on wood, but yeah.
Yes, so true. Okay, I'm going to hit this button because we're going to do it before time runs out.
Drake heard.
Okay, so
100%.
Well, while we were in the group room having a little discussion about what to talk about in the show, Drake, you heard something about live scope in Wisconsin.
Yeah.
Let us in on that. Tell us what you
So
heard.
it sounds like they're thinking about banning forward-facing sonar in Wisconsin, and I just kind of heard it. This was probably a half hour, 45 minutes ago, and I'm kind of a little bit baffled by it. But it's crazy to hear that.
And in a short amount of research, we found that it's looking like it's a topic of discussion coming up.
Yeah, I just, I don't know. It's just, where do you draw the line then at what we ban and don't ban? And is it because certain groups like it or certain groups don't? I think we have to look out for our fisheries. And I think, like I said earlier, it comes down to just educating people on, everything from catch and release to, bear trauma has been a big winter topic this year. I mean, all that stuff comes into play. And I think we'll serve our better if we how should I say this? I think if we educate people better, that's going to go a lot farther than just starting to ban things because certain people don't like them. That's my opinion.
And I agree, and I think it's more of the limit, right?
Yeah.
Like I said earlier, the limit. If we get rid of this whole stigma that you have to have a limit, I feel like we're going to be in a better position.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, that's even like I like last summer, I maybe kept maybe a dozen walleyes to eat. My wife likes fresh fish. She yells at me if I don't bring her fresh fish every once in a while. But at the same time, like, I caught, thousands of walleyes last summer. So it's just one of those things where you don't need the limit. Yeah, you can keep a few. Absolutely. Eat some. It's great. But we need to get off of that 100%.
In Minnesota right now, at least the DNR is finally getting a little bit more serious about reducing the number 6 to something else. I think they're contemplating 3 or 4. We know that Wisconsin started on inland lakes in Wisconsin. You can only have 3 walleye, and I think the term is most inland lakes.
Correct.
And then they've even dropped the panfish limit down to 10. So I think we're going to see some states follow suit. I don't know that South Dakota will come off 4 unless North Dakota goes down to 3, Wisconsin's 3, Minnesota's 3. Then, maybe it wouldn't bother me for the simple fact that I can always seem to catch 3 fish. I can't catch 4. But once we make the limit 3, I'll only catch 2.
Yeah.
That's how it goes.
That's always how it works. Yep.
But I'm a catch and release guy anyway. I don't take anything home. Even when mom says save a few for me, I just at this point, it feels like some of our lakes are overfished or outfished a little bit. And here again, I hate to say it because I'm just a radio guy, but it does come down to people more so than I don't care what the electronics are, if it's Lawrence's fish locator, or the mapping.
Yep.
Because you think about about the maps that we used to get from the DNR and the GFNT and et cetera. And some of these lakes, like Lake Ponset, what a great example. Our Lake Ponset here was just this great big basin.
Yeah.
And in 2013, when I started auto charting, mapping the lake, I'm like, what in the heck is going on here? Hey, Seaberg.
Yeah.
How you doing, Tom?
Yeah.
I was very blown away at the rock piles, at the steep breaks, the different things, the break lines. I just it was a whole different lake. So then Navionics comes out with theirs. Now Lowrance has theirs, and of course Humminbird has their Lake Master app now, and now we've got the 3D relief, which really, I don't know. For me, it changes things because I'm fishing in different spots than I was with just the simple 2D contour map.
Yep. Oh, 100%. I mean, and definitely, hard versus soft bottoms. I mean, that's a whole nother subject that, like, you get out into the open water. Why are these fish on these lines and they're in the middle of nowhere? Well, it's because they're maybe a harder soft bottom transition there. It's crazy, what we can see nowadays. And that's where it comes down to, where do you draw the line? I remember, like, before we had GPS for tournaments, you're lining up trees and telephone poles, and then it would take you an hour to get back to your spot that you were the day before, and then once we got
buoys, buddy.
yeah,
Marker
buoys. Right on.
Yeah, I had a little black one that we'd always try to hide, and we'd throw it out there so no one would see it. But
duck decoys,
seagull, whatever it might be, So it's just there's so many advances that I think it's, like I said, it comes down to educating and helping with that. Because that's a big part of it, so we'll see.
Very true. Mark Porter, by the way, Lake Erie can probably increase their limit because they are Walleye Disney now.
Yeah, I try to tell my buddies about Lake Erie when I come back to Minnesota, and I like, it's tough to put into words what's going on out there, because it is crazy. And I told my dad when we went to New York for the NWT championship that one year, 2 days in a row, I was like physically exhausted from reeling in so many walleyes. And I would have never in my life thought that I would be tired of reeling in walleyes on a day, and it's just crazy what's going on out there. And I hope they can sustain it. It's just, it's exploding every single year, and so we'll see.
Would you say with that the big fish numbers are going down?
I think it's crazy. So, like, we've been there about every other year for the last 6 years, and it's like those fish used to be 3 or 4 pounds, down there 5 or 6, and I think it just slowly goes up. But there's so many year classes that I don't think they've gotten those big, like, 12 to 14 pounders in there yet. But give it another 5 to 8 years, and I think you're going to see those monsters, coming back.
Yeah, I mean, it swings, right? I mean, we can blame Lake Oahe for the flood, mismanagement by Game Fish and Parks. I mean, it at the end of the day, Mother Nature knows what's best for herself. And then we go through swings, right? I mean, and it's our due diligence to do our best to take care of that land. And we can't always, like I said, we can't always rely on the laws. Just because it's 4 fish limit, it doesn't mean you need to eat 4 fish that night.
Absolutely.
Yeah, right. Yeah, it doesn't mean you need to throw 60 perch or crappie or whatever on the ice and snap a picture of it, and then what are you going to do with it? I mean, how much do you need in your freezer, really?
Right.
There again, people, but I'll leave it at that.
Exactly.
I know there were a couple other questions I had. I got a couple of texts while we were chatting, and I kind of shut myself down. You've seen the AR glasses that Ed Loughran and now Jace Emons got in on it, and I honestly, I have been trying to find some because I'm going to do it myself. I think I've got it figured out. I have it in my head. Not that I'm going to really go crazy and use it, but I'm really kind of curious, because if I can connect that to my Lowrance app on my phone, now Now I can see the map and whatever. So I'm going to fiddle around a little bit because it's too cool to not try.
So I was lucky enough, like 2 months ago, I had a company approach me. I got to try on a set. Like I didn't want to, like, whatever. I just wanted to see. And I'll be honest with you, I don't know if I could stand up in a boat and have that there. Like I guaranteed I'd fall right out of the boat. Like I'd be like looking around and all of a sudden I'm like, whoop, there goes Drake, But it's crazy what they're capable of now, and we'll kind of see what happens. But I just know when I had that screen like here, I was like, oh boy, I'm gonna get sick or I'm gonna fall out of the boat. So
well, and I would say this because we talked about him once. I've rode with Dinger in a boat. I don't want Dinger with AI glasses.
Yeah, exactly. That'd be a bad situation. So, but yeah, I mean, we'll see. My brother works at 3M, and they're working on integrating a lot of stuff into your windshields. So, like, it's one of those things that it'll be interesting to see how over the next 5 to 10 years what develops in our vehicles versus our screens on the water versus all that stuff.
And that's the thing. Like you say, now Wisconsin wants to ban it. Yeah. What are they going to do? I mean, how are you going to stop evolution?
Yeah.
And like I told you in the beginning, then we should have started when the Vexlar came up for ice fishing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
I mean, it's evolution, and the people that don't like it or whatever it is, maybe they don't want to spend the money. Maybe they don't know how to use it. I own one. Doesn't catch me more fish.
Oh, there's days I cuss and swear more, I think, because of it, more so than anything. It's and people argue, oh yeah, you can't get them to bite. Well, there's days they won't bite. Like they have lockjaw, and that's what Mother Nature's like. Nope, we're not doing it. And not only that, you talk to some of those bass guys down south, and they're already saying like fish are starting to feel it, so they're starting to adapt to it. Those fish will change too. A lot of those guys say they can't hold it on fish. You got to make the cast and you got to move it away because the fish are starting to feel it. So there's ways that Mother Nature will take care of it too, but it comes down to education again.
But say that, right? And that's so true. You can't make them bite, but I think the biggest thing is what we're learning so much more about our fish.
Mm-hmm.
That's key. Learning.
Below never in our life to think, okay, the only time I ever thought I was going to do that is we were pulling crappie boards over weed beds.
Yep.
Right? And we never thought we'd be fishing fish 2 feet under the boat over 40 foot of water on Lake Erie.
Yep. Yeah. It's just one of those things. It's crazy and I don't know. I find it extremely fun because I'm finding how many different ways I can catch these fish. They've gotten over, I've tried to get over those walleyes, I don't know how many times, and now I can finally like beat them up a little bit. And it's just fun to do at times, and I think, you got to be respectful of it, but it's just a blast and I'm having a great time doing it.
Well, we had a question come in here. Tom Seberg wants to know, what's your go-to bait for river walleyes?
It all depends on the year, but I will say I like throwing crankbaits on wing dams. It's one of those things that you can roll that crankbait right over the top of a wing dam, and it's coming down the front side, and you can just get ready to watch your line shake. So that is definitely a big one. Or if it's earlier in the year, I still love rigging a big chub or a willow cat down there and just feeling that minnow work. There's something about that, and that fish just thumps it. So those are the two that I think.
How do you hook your chubs? And we used to always hook them through the lips. Now I'm hooking them through the roof of the mouth, and leaving more hook. Yeah,
that's like the age-old debate. I've tried it a million different ways, and I've lost fish a million different ways. So I've tried them all. I don't know. I say I go through the bottom lip and out the little nostril. But I will say my dad just likes to put it up just in the top nostril so that he thinks he gets a better hook set. So
yeah, I learned fish creek chubs from my dad and Dan Steer. I don't know how to hook them. All I know is I got yelled at so many times growing up to sit on my hands.
Yep, exactly. And Dan, he's been doing it longer than a lot of us. It's funny because my dad went to college with Mark Steer, Dan's brother or whatever. So those guys have been doing it a lot longer than any of me or us. So it's
that
crazy.
goes back. My dad and Danny Steer grew up, and Mark grew up side by side in Gaylord, Minnesota. And
Yep.
Danny Steer and my dad moved to Huron, South Dakota in the same car.
Really?
No way.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Yeah,
Yep.
my dad used to joke that, you know why Dan's nose is so big? Because I broke it so many times growing up.
That's funny. Yeah, because my mom grew up in Arlington, and then my dad was in Green Isle. Like those are three towns that you never hear about in Minnesota, you know, but except for baseball. So
Hey, Austin, Minnesota is where my grandpa grew up, and they moved to Gaylord.
yep.
I'll be darned.
So-
I love how you can be in Arlington, Minnesota, and Arlington, South Dakota in one day. You could be in Raymond, Minnesota, and Raymond, South Dakota, all in one day. And it's weird how many times that can happen to you by accident.
Yep.
Here's another one. Dan Steer. He said Dan Steer taught him how to creek chub too.
Yep.
I'm not surprised by that. Steer could catch fish, and he can catch big fish too.
Yeah,
you know,
and that's where I give Dan. I mean, he did it a lot. And Dave Anderson, I got to travel with Adam Anderson when we were doing the AIM tournaments, you know, with my dad and him and Bomber, and those guys just knew how to do it. It was crazy, and it was a blast, like learning how these guys use these monster minnows to catch these walleyes. It was just one of those things where you're just in awe that a fish could even get it down, you know.
Yeah. It's crazy that, I mean, and there's going to be a time that creek chubbing's the thing, right? We go through, you know, now it's jigging wraps, right? I mean, growing up, jigging wraps were used for ice fishing when you got mad and tangled everybody up.
Yep.
You know, and now we're looking at casting them and doing all the different things. And, you know, I think we look away from creek chubbing a lot. I mean, run the Governor's Cup. Garrick McCumsey will sit in the bait shop if I know there's a creek chub bite because Garrick will sit there looking like a drug dealer with his Everglade back of freaking creek chubs all through the back, dealing them out of there.
Yeah, exactly. 100%. Exactly.
Yeah, there's a place on Lake Oahe where we like to take them for big bass. It's amazing, and boy, do you have to be patient though.
Yeah.
I'll tell you how many Governor Cup guys tell me they cuss them big bass with them creek chubs.
Yeah, there goes my $3.
The wall, they're not cheap. Exactly. Yeah, those creek chubs are not cheap unless I've got a buddy that just bought 3 new traps.
Yep.
Wow, they are truly amazing. They're huge.
Yep.
But they are really, really, really cool. So I'm kind of curious to see what he's catching. Roy Lake.
Mm-hmm. I haven't been to Roy.
So okay, so already big, largemouth and smallmouth. But I hear the walleye getting a little bigger. I shouldn't say that out loud to everybody, but I guess, you know, it is what it is. People fish Roy. And I think even some of the panfish are getting bigger in Roy as well. So a lot of people spent a ton of time fishing Clear Lake up there this year. We got to fish it with Tom Seberg and Grant Farmer a couple of weekends ago, just kind of by accident. And we had a ton of fun. Yeah, big smallies with chubs on Roy.
Yeah.
Yeah, out in the deeper water. Yeah. Roy's kind of a fun. Yeah, Tom, we had a good time. Holy cats. Boy, we stayed up way too late though. But you know, Roy has been one of those lakes that it's really coming around. You know, and I hope people leave it alone because I know they just hit Clear Lake so hard this winter. And but I guess that's the nature of people again, where the fish are biting and that's where you go. So
let me ask this, Drake. You can pick your ultimate NWT trail. What are the locations?
Oh, can I pick like 5 Minnesota lakes and say, you know, screw you to everyone else? No, you know, I like Green Bay on there. I like the Missouri River. So whether it be somewhere out in South Dakota, you know, it would be fun. Mobridge is always a blast. I like Erie, so I'm kind of going with this year's stuff, but Ottertail again would be nice, even though it's a little small. I like fishing that one. And then you know one that I wish we'd maybe go back to would be Lake of the Woods. That's
Yeah.
one lake that, I learned a lot, and we didn't really necessarily have forward-facing sonar when we were there last. So we were just kind of learning a bunch, and we were still trolling, but now guys are starting to cast that. And so I think that one would be a fun one just because of how vast it is and how many big fish are in there.
I was on Ottertail when you won. I was there in the audience. And back then it was kind of it was my first summer doing the stuff that I'm doing with the In Through the Outdoors. And I wanted to come up and introduce myself to you, and I got scared. And I wanted to do the same thing with Tom Wynn, and I got scared. I'm a fraidy cat. I'm a chicken. But here's the thing that I learned: you guys are all just awesome people, and McConaughey, and no doubt.
Oh yeah, I will
you guys
say
you're all you're regular people and really nice.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, we're just trying to help educate the young people. We want them to come out, and that's our biggest thing is that I need the youth to come up too, So the more people we can help with learning for them to catch fish and just have them enjoy the time at the tournament, the better off we're going to be, So that's why I'll get texts afterwards like, "Hey, I wanted to come say hi, but I got shied away or whatever." And I'm like, I don't care. I'll talk to anybody. I want you to have a good time when you're there, and it's fun seeing all the youth out there. So it's great, So I know he said McConaughey. Like, I would love to do a southern swing. Like, I haven't been down to any of those Nebraska, Kansas, even Arkansas. Like, I would love to go down there at some point. Bull Shoals, for example.
Yeah,
like,
right.
If we went there at the right time, like, absolutely. I haven't been down there. I'm too young yet. But I would love to do one of those McConaughey, some of those southern lakes. I just haven't been there, So it'd be fun to do one of those too.
Tom said Drake's a great guy. He's like an old buddy after 2 days of fishing the NWT with you guys.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
I think I need to say this real quick so that people know and understand. And I know that I'm preaching to the choir here, but when you meet these guys, I met Tom and it felt like we'd been friends for 20 years from the minute I met him.
Yeah.
And then when we fished together a couple of weekends ago, it was like I'd been fishing with the guy 100 times. And it's a testament to how awesome some of these guys are. I was kind of afraid of you, because I'm like, well, he's an angler of the year and it's just little old me. But then one day you had messaged or you had commented about Dan Spengler and I and the metal detecting. Yep. And I'm like, whoa, we connected, and so it's amazing. And so that's why I was excited to have you on tonight, because I knew it was going to be like we were. Sorry, I look a little older than you, but not high school classmates. But you know what I'm saying? Yeah. Where we've hung out and we've done stuff together, and I think that's truly amazing, because the walleye world gets a little bit of I don't want to say a black eye, because that's too much. Walleye guys have their secrets, right? Bass guys are very complimentary and they they share. But boy, I'll tell you what, if you get the chance to talk to a walleye guy, not on business day. You know what I mean? Right. Sorry, but you think about, this person and that they're crabby. No, they're not. They're number one, they can't talk to you because you can't give them any secrets or anything or any hints or help. And they're busy, they're working. So
it's one of those things. I know you guys had Corey Heiser. Me and him talk about this a lot. Even Bill Shimoda, like, I have competitors, Brew City, for example, Tim Newman. Like, I talk to Tim probably once every 2 weeks, and Bill Shimoda I talk to probably once a month. All these guys that are in the industry, that we're supposed to be, mortal enemies because we're competitors to each other, and we're just trying to grow the sport, all of us. There's plenty of room for all of us, and I get along with all of those guys, and I talk to them all the time. So it's one of those things where we just want to help and grow the sport, and that's what we're trying to do. And like you said, it sometimes walleye guys seem like they're so secretive. You just got to step out and just ask them some questions, because they're there to help. We want you guys to get excited about walleye fishing, because we need those guys in the future.
Yeah,
well, true. And that's the thing, is two things in this. competition is healthy.
Yep.
Right. I mean, you wouldn't make finger products the way you do if it wasn't for a product that failed on you or, to make that better. So that's number one. Number two is the reason I think we all connect is we all have the same passion.
Yeah.
Like we're all at a fishing tournament for the same reason. We like it. We like fishing. And very few people in this industry don't want to see the sport grow.
Yep. Right.
So, I mean, we all have the same passion. The reason we're doing Between Hook Sets is to hear from guys like you and to try to break that stigma and understand that we're all here for the same reason.
Yep.
We want people out there fishing because it's good for all of us.
Yep, absolutely. And that's where, like Dan Spangler, for example, like the guy's a genius, and I'm sponsored by Strike King Lose. They're mortal enemy, they're supposed to be mortal enemies. I talk to Spangler all the time about certain things, it's just, that's where, everyone's so worried about it. Well, we're just all trying to grow the sport. That's our number one thing is we're trying to do.
And not everybody gets 100% of the market. So,
yep.
Especially in that bait world. A guy said to me one time, and it stuck with me, is the first bite on a bait is you at the store. So,
yeah, exactly. Well, that's why we always try to create new colors. So then we just keep it rolling, even though I use the same 3 colors year in and year out for the most part.
Yeah.
Well, this year was a little bittersweet for me because Dave, Kurt's dad, taught me how to catch big walleye using a shallow shad, number 7 shallow shad. And it was money. It was magic. And then it wasn't this year, but the money badger, holy cats.
Yeah.
It was amazing. So I had a ton of fun with that. And I reported back to Dan and gave him all of my intel.
Good.
No, but it was a ton of fun. I did text him and say, hey, thanks for creating that thing because it sure worked well, no doubt.
Just remember,
that's right. Minnows and Crawlers don't sponsor anyone. That's actually, sorry, Artie, I should have had this one.
Yeah, there you go. I spend plenty of money with Urbank Bait and Tackle every year, and Marshall Kep and all the Keps can verify that because I mean, there's days I'll absolutely use a night crawler, a leech, or a minnow. Like, there's no doubt about it.
So let me ask this question: do you think that any of the states, Minnesota, North Dakota, South Dakota, will outlaw live bait?
I don't know if we'll ever get that far. It's crazy. Marshall Kep, who's Urbank Bait and Tackle, they supply a lot of the Midwest, honestly. And he goes, we have so many hoops that we have to jump through now that it's getting harder and harder, as far as permits that they have to do and tests and all this stuff to make sure the minnows are safe. So I don't know if they will ever go fully to it or not. There's so many people that like putting a night crawler on for sunfish and not just necessarily walleyes. There's all those other species that, they just like to, as it's America's pastime to have a bobber and a night crawler on a dock, so I don't think they ever will, but we'll see, only time will tell. Because I
think R3, the big R3 push locally, federally, I don't see that coming, right? I mean, because I've said for years, like I fished with Garrick McCumsey before pitching plastics. I wasn't confident in it. He sat in the front of the boat. I casted 400 times. He casted 4 times and caught 4 walleyes. I wasn't confident in the piece of plastic. I casted the same plastic he did, and I couldn't catch him.
Yeah.
So I don't think if you want to continue to grow people in the sport, I don't think taking that away is the answer. And I think powers to be understand that.
Yeah. And that's the same thing with plastics. Like if you'd have told me 8 years ago that I'd be throwing as many plastics as I do now and artificials, like I had never dreamed of it, but it's just more and more confidence. The more people do it, they have more confidence in it. But there's just certain days where I still revert back to a spot tail shiner or a fathead and a jig, and I will crush fish doing it, so it's just interesting to see, and we'll see what happens.
I say that, and then Tom says, come to Nebraska. They have a lot of lakes where we can't use minnows.
Yeah. So
when you're throwing these things, there is a way to retrieve them. You can't just cast it out and bring it back.
So I will say that unless you're at, I shouldn't say this, Devil's Lake, the slower you can reel those swim bait, that exact one, the more they crush it. And then every other place like Sault Ste. Marie and stuff, they won't even look at it. You got to be ripping it, So
No kidding.
it's crazy what each lake is so different at times. But literally, Devil's Lake is the only one that I kind of slow rolled it. So I don't.
You talked about ripping. I just talked to Jim Edlund here this week, and we're going to set up a fishing opportunity. I can't wait to fish with the Grizz.
Yeah.
And get in on the Grizz's way of fishing. I am so excited to meet him and see how he fishes. I love Jim Edlund. He's such a cool dude.
Yeah, absolutely. So, I mean,
I see it must be we must be 55 minutes into it. My reminder that I got to take my pills before I go to bed came.
That doesn't show your old age or anything.
I'll tell you what, it's been great to have you on. Thank you kindly for coming on and reaching out. Actually, that was awesome. Because Kurt and I are always trying to find somebody, topic and timely, and we want to be topical, and you reached out, and I know we're going to have Tom on too. Tom Seberg will join us too before we get into the MWC. So thank you very much. Appreciate it. It's a ton of fun watching you. I hope to see you somewhere, some way, somehow, maybe Red Wing. I'm not quite sure. I don't know that I'm going to hit all of the tournaments like I have the last few years, because I got a full calendar already. It's great.
That's good. It's growth. That means it's growth time. So that's good.
Right. So true. So, hey, we appreciate it. And before you go, I don't know, making walleye fishing more fun. Rappala's got the Bassmaster Fantasy Fishing. And do you do any Bassmaster Fantasy Fishing at all?
I should. I don't. Bill Shimoda he's like a machine when it comes to that stuff. So I always just watch his because he's so good at it. Someday I'll jump in on that.
We started a league this year, and I'm terrible.
You're terrible.
It's hard. Honestly, this year's super hard. I think it's because of the rookies.
Yeah.
I really think that forward-facing sonar and the rookies have changed the way we're picking. But that's fine. We'll grow with it and have some fun.
Yep. A 19-year-old kid winning an elite
jump on, but it's too late now. But hopefully you'll join us next year.
I've decided in my new fantasy lineup there's going to be one Japanese angler and one rookie every week.
Yeah. That's probably going to about nail it. That's probably about perfect.
Right. Yeah. No doubt. Drake, thank you much.
Yeah, thanks,
have a great year, and good luck to you. Thanks for hanging, and we hope to have you back again.
Absolutely. Thanks, boys. I appreciate it.
See ya.
Take care. Thank you. All right, fantastic, Kurt. We're gonna chat afterwards here. I don't think we're quite done yet. Drake's gonna hang on, and we'll do some behind the scenes things. We're getting ready for the Classic. Let's just bring that up here real quick. Taking the trip to the Bassmaster Classic. That is going to be a ton of fun. So not sure what's going to happen Wednesday night, the 20th, with the show, but we are working on Dave Mercer for the 13th. I'm going to hope that Mandy can hook us up there. I don't know, but we're going to try.
Well, perfect. We're excited. Can't wait to get down there. Vexus Boats invited us down. Cannot wait to go to the Classic for the first time. I'm kind of upset because I think it won't be our last.
Yeah, right.
I think it's going to become an annual thing for us, but I'm pretty excited. Stay tuned for that stuff. We're a couple weeks out, but we'll probably do some lives and some different stuff from down there. So make sure you pay attention, and I cross our fingers we have Mercer next week. If not, we'll have another great guest.
I hope so. Should be a ton of fun. All right. Thank you
for
watching. Have a great night.
Oh, yeah,